What the NEA is trying to do and what Congress has tried to do in passing the Helms Amendment is control information. And the thing that makes me laugh is in the last 20 years, images and words that artists or writers make have had absolutely no power, given that we're essentially competing against media, you know, in order to create something that reverberates in either images and words. And the fact that if at this point in time, images and words that can be made by an individual have such power to create this storm of controversy, isn't that great? It means that the control of information has a crack in its wall. The Helms Amendment cannot legally be used retroactively to rescind a grant that was given, you know, 8 or 9 months ago, and yet this is what they're trying to do, and they're trying to do it on the level of calling it the show political. And the thing that made me angry is that the show is made up of 23 artists that's funded by the NEA. The show is funded by the NEA. The catalog, which is funded by the Robert Mapplethorpe Foundation, which, aside, you know, I think is a wonderful marriage, the NEA and the Robert Mapplethorpe Foundation. The Robert Mapplethorpe Foundation funded the catalog. And for Frohnmeyer, chairman of the NEA, to take the catalog and take one essay out of the catalog and use that to represent the entire show is cowardly. And I just maintain that you know, if they're going to call my writing political, how can they ignore the political aspect of AIDS? And you know, what I said to this guy in the Times is the fact that I may be dying of AIDS in 1989, is that not political? Is the fact that I don't have health insurance and I don't have access to adequate health care, is that not political? And I think that says it clearly.
What is it also about the NEA and the conflict between artist space that has you particularly upset?
Well, I think that Frohnmeyer, who's chairman of the NEA, is making a cheap censorship tactic by pretending, one, that the NEA is still funding the catalog, which it clearly was arranged by Susan.
So the catalog,
The catalog in the show was funded by the NEA like 8 months ago or something to that effect. What? Susan Wyatt looked at the nature of the essay and decided that it might be best if the Robert Mapplethorpe Foundation funds it rather than the NEA. So she arranged for the Mapplethorpe Foundation to fund it, sent a letter to the NEA way back, you know, when, like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, saying that they will not be using NEA money to fund the catalog, but they will continue using NEA funding for the show. And she was generous to them by showing them the materials involved of the other artists and the writings in order to show them what they can expect to be dealing with if it becomes an issue.
What do you think really frightens them the most?
Bottom line, what frightens them is information. And that's the total bottom line. Information and representation of people who are affected by legislated morality, visibility, etc. I mean, people who are made invisible in this country, people who are silenced in this country. Basically, bottom line, that's the information pertaining to those people or from those people is there's an attempt to silence it in any form. The NEA is claiming that what I said was horrible, monstrous, you know, inflammatory, this, that, the most terrible things that they can't even repeat them. And I said, look, you know, bottom line, I said, you know, take what, you know, and he mentioned Dannemeyer's name as, you know, apparently it was mentioned in yesterday's Times article as one of the people that I supposedly said something about. And I said, look, William Dannemeyer recently moved to strike from record a survey or a study that was done on violence in America. One section that pertains to homosexual teenagers, where the study found that there was increasing numbers of homosexual teenagers that were murdered or beaten up, and that Dannemeyer tried to suppress that part of the study because it contained the word homosexual, and that he felt that there should be no representations of homosexuality in the study. And then therefore, and I said to this guy from the Times, therefore, William Dannemeyer condones the murder and terrorizing of homosexual teenagers, and here I am, I'm making, you know, a gesture you know, to deal with these people and what they've done, and suddenly suddenly, you know, what I've done is despicable or terrible enough to have funding lifted. And I said, you know, do you understand what it is to have AIDS in this country, to turn on the TV or open the newspaper and see these people and see them legislate, you know, things so that I'm invisible, that I have no voice, and that my image is suddenly non-existent, and that, you know, no gesture I could make could even approximate the violence of what these people have done. You know, maybe you can, you know, as a member of the press, can sit by and let these things take place and not respond to them at all. And I said, but, you know, as far as myself, no way. I'm not going to sit still and be silent about it.
How heroic.
To the barricades!